it's my family charity was Sitkey, the RUSA Foundation, so it's the first year that we're involved. Very proud to be part of this that Ruth and James has created, and to have this time for you guys to ask the questions from these living legends, as I would say, and coaches that actually helps everyone to their goals and successes within running. The RUSA Foundation, we set that up for the and help grassroots sports. It's also to help community spirit. So we've been going for roughly 2 years, and we have helped quite a few things within the Larne area and Northern Ireland. But our scope and geographical spread is from the UK over to Turkey and to Malaysia as well. And we try to do our best to kind of give back. And the fact that working with the team here at the Antrim Coast Half Marathon is something we're very proud of. It's got the same ethos that of giving back. It's helping, it's growing, and helping everyone turn to succeed from the minor things up to the big things. This endurance clinic is something, first time me sitting into it, but to hear, as I said, the living legends talking about the physical training, the dietary, the hydration management is something that's very interesting to me. And yes, I need to run this at some point, and James will beat me up. But I think also, Andrew just touched on earlier on, it's the mental health of runners. It's the mental ability to get up and run, but it's dealing with your day to day, and running does help that. And then it helps you take that forward without putting the stresses onto you. And it is interesting to me to hear, both the elite runners, and when you hear the rest of today's talk, it'll be interesting for you guys to the layman's terms. And at that point, I can hand lightly over to Tony from White Ribbon Northern Ireland. Tony's the CEO. He's done an amazing job in Northern Ireland and hopefully globally.
Whoa. Firstly, I am feeling like a bit of an imposter in this room full of athletes. I feel so privileged to be allowed here with you all. I am not a good runner, but I am a runner of sorts. I would love to tell you what time I hope to finish this half marathon in, but at the minute it is finish this half marathon would be good. I am a once a week runner. I'm usually on a Sunday 10k runner, or when I've had a hard day at work. And when I do run, it's more for space and clarity, and usually a legitimate allowed break from the house or the office. But I'm also the CEO of White Ribbon NI, and it is a charity which works to end violence against women and girls by involving everyone. So we especially welcome men and boys into the prevention conversation. I am incredibly proud of the work our charity does to prevent violence against women and girls by promoting cultures of respect, of consent and equality in all kinds of organisations. So sports teams, universities, sports governing bodies, schools, councils, different businesses. We call our programme Listen, Learn, Lead, and it gives all organisations and individuals as well the information and the tools that they need to make society a safer place. So we work with the Executive Office in the first ever Violence Against Women and Girls strategy in Northern Ireland. It's so strange to say that that's the first ever Violence Against Women and Girls strategy in Northern Ireland. We train the PSNI, we work in prisons with young men who've committed crimes to encourage healthy relationships in the future. And I work on a project with Women's Aid, or partner organisation, who support women and children affected by abuse to raise awareness on domestic abuse within older women. I've actually recently accepted a position on a safer socialising group, which involves representatives from the Executive Office, TransLink, the hospitality sector and the police service in Northern Ireland, where I will champion our Women's Night Safety Charter. I also have a 13-year-old son and a 1-year-old Staffordshire Bull Terrier, and a 37-year-old man also lives in my house. So for me, like so many people in this world, running is not about how fast I can do it. Partly because, firstly, I do not run that fast. But for me, it's about spending a really long time out of the house or away from the office where no one can get me, and giving myself some space from all the things I know I'm so privileged to do, but I need a minute from. So I run slowly and I take in my surroundings. I am local, so my surroundings are usually the beautiful Antrim coast, which I am so lucky. But before I do this, and I think some of the women in the room will relate, the mental checklist comes into play. So it starts with when I'm lacing up my trainers and I'm thinking, it starts with me looking down and thinking, is this outfit bright enough? I want to be seen by cars, I don't want to get hit by a car. But not too bright, because I don't want to stand out too much. Is it too revealing? I don't want to draw any attention to myself. Maybe I shouldn't wear shorts, but it is too warm. And then I go on to say, should I wear headphones? I want to listen to that podcast that gets me going, because God, I need something to get me going. But no, I should probably be aware of my surroundings. That's not safe. It's not safe to wear headphones. Right, I need to grab my phone. I need to turn my location on. I need to make sure my family knows where I am. Doing that runs the battery down though. Do I have enough charge? I really don't want it to die, especially when I'm far from home. And it's getting dark. Is it even safe to run at this time? I'll just avoid that wee quiet lane. It gives me the chills. And I'll go the longer way. Then I start thinking, maybe I should start running in the morning. I say 5 a.m. and then I say, nah, 4 a.m. Get my day off to a good start. And then I think, but there isn't many people around at that time. Is it safe? And that's the three words that echo in my brain. And it's probably words that you've heard, from mums and coaches and people in the past, boyfriends. Is it safe? Is it safe? Is it safe? And for the most part it is. We know that most of the time it is. But there is a reason for these thoughts. Aisling Murphy was attacked and murdered while she was on a run. In daylight, on a walkway named Fiona's Way. Fiona's Way, the walkway that she was on, was named after another Irish woman who went missing in 1996 while she was heavily pregnant. In a survey by Runner's World, 60% of women said that they'd been harassed while running. The running community are shocked by some of these things, but this was a Runner's World survey. 25% reported being regularly subjected to sexist comments or unwanted sexual advances, and 6% said that they'd felt threatened to such an extent by harassment that they feared for their lives. Behaviours and attitudes which are often seen to be normal and harmless and unavoidable, and their behaviours and attitudes such as catcalling and sexist banter, they often go unchallenged. I'm just putting this in my bag as I go. They go unchallenged in our schools and our teams, and then later on in life in our clubs, our workplaces and our families. And they reinforce the attitudes and beliefs which lead to the acts of violence that we hear in the media. And practicing safely is important, and following the rules is important, for any sport, and we know that. But it's all of our responsibility to make sure that the blame is never placed on those subjected to harm of any kind. And it should never be up to someone to be constantly on their guard and change their behaviour and take precautions or buy equipment so as not to be attacked. The blame must always fall directly and solely on the person causing the harm. And I think what's important about White Ribbon NI and what we do is we say that we have to normalise calling our friends in, not calling them out, calling them in when they're saying things that might be described as victim blaming, sexist or disrespectful. Normalise speaking up when you see something potentially harmful, or if not, see it safe to do so by involving someone who can. The conversations that are generated in places like this of extreme positivity and really powerful motivation, which I heard today, they're a catalyst for change. These kind of rooms, that's where the change really happens. And I can see, as someone who is not a runner, I can see that the running community is just that, it's a community. And if such messages are reinforced within this community, we can shift the boundaries of what's considered standard and change the social norms that have allowed violence against women and girls to continue. And it's not about who has it worse. And as I said, I have a 13-year-old son, so I feel this in my bones. The attitudes and beliefs which lead to violence against women and girls are the same ones that tell young men that their worth is locked up in this stereotypical man role who never shows any weakness or, God forbid, gentleness, and must earn as much money and power as possible to be in any way respected in the world. These ideas hurt our boys growing up and trying to find their place in the world too. What we have to do is cultivate a community which looks out for each other. My charity, White Ribbon NI, believe everyone has the right to enjoy the freedom to run without fear. So when I'm doing my really slow, struggling run home, I always see, and he's not here today, so I'm not talking about this person, I always see a man from the local running club, and he passes me. Well, he laps me, and then he passes me. And then I always see my old PE teacher, and she runs up the hill that I run down, and she doesn't look out of breath at all. And with both of these people, I always lock eyes. And I feel that sense of solidarity with both of them. And that lets me know that the running community is just that, it's a community. We won't end violence against women and girls in my lifetime or yours, and we won't completely change the culture that's caused it. It's a story that started long before any of us were born. But we can leave the world a wee bit better for the next generation. And what I like to think when I'm thinking about this is there will be a woman in the future because of what we've all done together. There will be a woman in the future who gets to the end of her busy day. She gets her dinner, she reads her kids a bedtime story, she sees it's getting dark, she sticks her headphones on, she turns her music up high, and this is the important bit. Without a second thought, she just runs. So thank you very much for allowing me to be here today as a non-athlete, but I feel very welcome in the running community.
We're just going to have a fantastic presentation. Thank you very much for taking the time today. We're going to have a little discussion. Do you want to take a little seat in the panel here as well? Yeah. So we're going to have a little 15-minute Q&A just regarding women running and what are the key issues in terms of on the key things with women running. I notice we have some coaches here who are from different clubs here. We'd like to get their sort of input as well. So running on your own, also our elite athletes do a lot of running in training groups and on their own. What are the key things to look out for and to consider when you're running on your own as a woman? Joe, what would your view on that be?
Yeah, well done. That was a really inspiring speech. Brilliant. I think for me, it's telling people where you're going. If you can take your phone, I'm not always good at taking my phone when I want to try and do a good pace run, and it's bad really, so I should take it anyway. But also, some people do decide to take, on extreme cases, do take a spray, don't they, and things like that. I've never done that, but I know people do. But I think just running when you can in safe areas and everything. I think, you made the point that generally most people are safe, and I do feel that at times I have run places on my own when I was younger in my career where in theory maybe it's not that safe to go on my own, but I feel like, I need to do my running, so I am going to do that anyway. But I've sometimes thought, maybe I shouldn't be here on my own because there's not a lot of people about and things like that. I suppose sometimes you could be thinking, I'm not going to go along a trail where there's nowhere to sort of go, like there's, the potential bushes and that, and maybe, I suppose, in theory, if you were always putting your runs on Strava every day and you were always showing that you're in the same place, that could be a problem, and always doing the same routes and things like that. But, when you can, going for a run with other people is really, really nice if you can do that. But, just making sure, like you say, you're running in things that you feel comfortable in as well. But like you quite rightly say, you should be able to wear what you want, but things that you feel comfortable in. But just making sure you have got people knowing where you're going and things like that. Running maybe in daylight when you can, running safe routes, running with other people. but we don't want to be frightening people not to run, because like you're quite rightly making the point, we need to feel we can, women of all ages, young girls through to, all women of all ages, you want to feel like you can go out there and run. So we certainly don't want to scaremonger, but taking the sensible precautions can be a good idea to keep yourself safe, definitely.
So we'll just move on to...
Can I just say something quickly? I completely agree with everything that you'd said. I think as well, if everyone in the running community can support women running, that makes a big difference. I know I run through Glenara sometimes, and there is two men who run behind me, and they shout, "I'm coming up." That's something that is a small gesture, but is so helpful and makes that you're not scared.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I do sometimes find that, like, when I'm running along the canal path and I am out there on my own, and you come across, and obviously the man is a totally lovely man, they're not going to do anything, but you just feel like there's no one around, it might be starting to get a little bit dark, and you do feel a little bit like, I don't know, and like you say, if they say, oh, so that could be helpful. And I agree with you about the headphones as well. I don't tend to run with headphones because I feel like I need to be aware of what's going on if I'm like on a canal path and there's no one else around, and you just think, you hope that as a runner you might be able to run away a little bit, and you feel like if you've got headphones in, you're totally unaware of like if there was a noise in the bushes or something. And I think that can be a shame, but I suppose because I've had to do so many runs and miles over the years, I have tended to try and keep myself safe, but I also know that I need to get out there and I need to get out and enjoy running. And I think you're right, we need to promote the safety of women running, but also enable them to get out there and enjoy the running, because it's so important for so many reasons.
Jackie, you were going to answer that, yeah?
I was just going to say I have had experience. I was chased when I was out on a run, and it was when I was marathon training, and I was living out, Bashir and myself were living out in the countryside, and we had a treadmill in the garage for the early morning 6 a.m. runs, and I hated it. Just half an hour on the treadmill every morning. And I got up one morning and I looked out of the window, and there was a really bright full moon, and I just thought, well, it's bright, I can see the road. I didn't think about people, I just thought about the road. I thought I'll go out and I'll do my run outside today. And I passed a guy who was walking in front of me, and as I passed him I shouted morning and ran past him, and then the next thing I heard footsteps behind me, and it was this man, and I was fortunate that I was very close to a house, and I screamed, and the woman was in the bedroom window and shouted out the window, and he ran off. There's more to that story, but I was okay. I ran back to the house and told Bash what had happened. And a girl that we grew up with, she grew up with us in our club Stockport Harriers. This is when we were in our late teens now. She was murdered. She was out training for a marathon in Germany. And she was running the same route every day, and a guy lay in wait for her, and she was murdered. So yeah, I've had two experiences really. One of a friend that we grew up with, and then I experienced being chased, and luckily I was okay. For a long time afterwards, I think one of the key things I took from it is just always be aware. And if you're running along a woodland path and there's a junction, don't just look to the left, which is the direction you're running, look to the right as well, just to see who is around and how far away they are from you. And it's an awful thing to have to do, because like you say, everybody, apart from the odd person, is a good person. And it's great that those guys shout to you to I'm coming through. But I think you just need to be aware. And I did carry a pepper spray. Shouldn't have had hold of it, really. I think they're illegal, but I had one for a while. But I stopped doing it because as time goes by, you become a little bit less frightened, and you just and you know what? You've got to it can't alter your life. You've got to do what you love doing, but we shouldn't really have to think that way, and it is, but we do. So that's my experience. So sorry, that's a bit of a negative. I know we're trying to turn it positive now, to say, let's all support each other, and men support women running. And it's so important that we do that, because, like you say, in our lifetime, it's probably we can make a difference, but we're not going to end it. Yeah.
Something just I was going to touch with Rosie just here. In Ballyonharris, they have a welcoming sort of, when somebody new comes to the club, that somebody talks to them and sort of tells them a little about the club and the things, you know, what nights they're on and what groups there are and things like that. That's something you could add to that. You know, if you are going to be starting to run with our club and maybe doing runs on your own, try not to run on your own unless it's somewhere safe, and tell people where you're going, and just be, you know, maybe educate them on some of the things that are around your area. I mean, you go to Cumber any Sunday, it doesn't matter what time of the day it is, you will see like so many groups of people running, from, you know, middle-aged ladies to elite runners. It's a fantastic place to, if you want to be in part of a group, it's a great place to be. But that's maybe something you can talk about in your introductory talk to new members. I just want to move on just quickly to talk about coaches supporting female runners, and those coaches who are working with female runners, and what are the differences and things you have to also take into account when you're coaching female runners. Last year, let's. What's your? You have some interesting points to make on this one.
I think I coach some teenagers down in Athlone, and one of the things that I sometimes have to work out is the difference between overtraining and what stage of their monthly cycle they're at, because I know at stages of the monthly cycle they might feel less inclined to train hard, and it's something that I'm not sure of, and I've been on menopausal courses and female courses to try and get the gist of it, but as a man and as a coach I just don't really get it. So it was one of the questions I was perhaps going to ask earlier. When elite athletes are training, how do you differentiate between overtraining and perhaps a stage of your monthly cycle when perhaps you feel less inclined to do a hard workout?
Katrina, do you want to put that one? Yeah.
I suppose we like to keep everything simple, and nature is nature, and we have no choice. The next time I come back, I want to be a man. But anyway, look, and I can only speak from my own experience, and I was lucky that it didn't hinder me in any way. Maybe a little bit less energy at that time of the month, but it's, I suppose in general, everybody is different, and the athlete needs to be very honest with the coach, and the coach does need to have a little bit of understanding and compassion, I suppose. But you do have to get on with it at the same time. But just to be careful around that time and to pull back on the training a little bit, so that, because if you push through it, and again, the body will tell you itself as well. If you feel tired, just pull back until the energy comes back up again.
Thank you. Also, just to ask Gemma, sort of, in terms of, you've run a lot of different training groups, with different other female athletes, and what are the sort of the key themes and things that with women running that are prevalent in terms of at the present time supporting women with running? What are the key things you think coaches should focus on when coaching really juvenile girls or women in their groups?
Yeah, I'd say there should be more female coaches. I was coached by Liz McColgan for a long time, which she was obviously a different breed to me. She was very tough and
hard taskmaster, Liz, I hear.
Yeah. She used to say the monthly cycle. It's just one of those things. Just get on with it, sort of thing. But I think that attitude needs to be a bit change a bit more really, because it's very temperamental time of the month really, especially for. You get that water retention and that you feel heavier and bloated, your muscles are more, you can overstride because you just feel out of sorts, but to be honest. So I think, basically the less intense sessions, and I try and do easier sessions and like 200s probably, more less intense sessions, and not put too much pressure on myself and adapt it that way. So I think with me coaching myself now, it's a lot easier to counteract that problem. So I can adapt it for myself.
I'm going to just pass to somebody in the audience here. I think if you could I see Emer here as somebody who's I'm going to pass this to you just for a question, if you wouldn't mind. Emer is somebody in Northern Ireland who's gone from being a fun runner to a purging on the elite now with some big wins from the last year. She also has a very enthusiastic partner who's a good runner as well. And it's only good to get your views, and obviously you've come through the different levels of running, and you've also had a baby just thrown in there as well. So just give me your experience in running over the last number of years, and how you've coped with changing things and how you've adapted to the different levels now that you're running at.
I suppose, like some of the women up there, after having a baby, I had sort of thought I'd never get back to where I was, and it's surprising what your body will allow you to do, with a bit of patience. But I suppose, I think it's good. I heard an interview with Jess Warner-Judd just after her 10K, and she had said it's more open now. So she was saying about the last races she had, she was having her period or whatever, and she was so glad that on that occasion she wasn't, and she was able to execute the perfect race. So I just think people chatting about it more, and it just being being something that can be talked about, it is a good thing for all of us. We all, as you say, Katrina, you sort of have to just try and get on with it, but it is, you just kind of listen to your body and pull back whenever you can.
And your training obviously must have vastly changed in terms of the level of you've now changed to. You're coming in some of those half marathons now and training with good training groups. How have you adapted your lifestyle with having all these different things going on at once?
Well, have you met Drew Fowler? He is probably he's the most enthusiastic. He just has a real brilliant way about him, and he's so understanding to me. Having two runners at home with both high goals. I have a dad who is a 2:23 marathon runner. So there's big shoes, and poor Maeve is just like, what is going on here? Like, her weekends are just going to races up and down the country. But yeah, in terms of, we've got a good system going, we're just open. I think communication, just sort of decide who's doing what sessions. I have a dedicated day on a Tuesday night with the striders, and that's set in stone. Doesn't matter what's going on, I'm there. With a treadmill, you just kind of work around it, and definitely communication is the key. And Drew does a lot in his power to help me as well. He just purchased one of those ice baths, so I'm out at 6 o'clock every morning, and he's purchased a massage gun, and he's always encouraging me to enter races and to push himself. I was just saying to the girls here from Ballydrain, he was the pacer at Cumber.
That's right.
And he just says the right thing at the right time.
Supporting people around you is a big thing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I just want you to pass the microphone to our two ladies behind you there. These two are two fantastic coaches from Ballydrain Irish who are teaching the beginners and intermediate groups. And through the years, they've brought a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds and levels through training. Some of them from beginners right up, and now they're running lots of half marathons. Ballydrain's a club here, they do a lot of marathons, and a lot of people in the club done all these marathon series, all the top marathons in the world. So I just want to ask Rosie and Heather there, you obviously, we're going to move into injury prevention. So you've had people here coming to you, join the running club, start training. So how do you take them through that next 6 months of running, so to keep away from the injury prevention?
We would always sort of tell people not to do too much too soon. Don't go from time. There's a wee phrase called too many twos. So there's a lot of people who start off, maybe join Couch to 5K, start their running career from there, and then all of a sudden they want to do a 10K, and then they want to do a half marathon, and then they want to do a marathon, and they want to do it all within the next 6 weeks. So it's trying to manage their expectations of what can be achievable within a certain period of time.
Keeping everybody grounded.
Yes, yeah. And being sensible with their training.
These two also not only coach, but they take part in the events as well. So if you want to go and run a half marathon, they will be on the starting line as well as coaching you. So in terms of Heather, what's your advice in terms of the injury prevention? So also you've now moved into working with some of the intermediate runners as well now, and your own run has improved a lot in the last 5-10 years. So what would your advice be in terms of we sort of train in the same area. A lot of different terrains are there. We have the fantastic Billy Neal facility. footwear for new athletes and things like that. Just give me some of the things that you would be sort of advising people for injury prevention.
Well, obviously, consistency, trying to get them to turn up and join in speed sessions or a Tuesday, and usually some sort of like tempo or group speed on a Thursday, and the long runs on the weekends. We hit on the slow pace subject earlier on, and it's really, really tough to try and get our athletes to slow down on their easy runs and try and explain to them. And we share constant posts, try and keep it lighthearted, because at the end of the day, they're recreational runners and it has to be fun.
There's a big thing there where constant communication, running clubs where they're always communicating with you maybe on WhatsApp or things, giving you information and sort of enthusiasm as well through your training weeks. Coaching the Tuesday and Thursday, you don't hear from the person the next week. These guys that are on saying, this is Sunday today, there's a great long run going on today from the square in Cumber, come and join one of these groups. So that's another thing, taking away something as a coach for injury prevention, getting people into the right groups for the right speed of running. You were talking about this earlier, getting the right speed or the right intensity for your level. And these ladies do this very well. You see lots of groups in Cumber running all different speeds and different distances and things, and there's a lot. It's a very good environment to be in if you're a beginner runner to start.
Can I also just say, we also did a day's course with Katarina, Chi running.
Yes, I saw that, yeah.
One time down in Dublin, and it taught us a lot. Katarina, and we took it back to our groups in the club, and we still come back to a lot of the Chi running ethos. So we learned a lot from you. So it is amazing what just from listening to 2 or 3 things from all of you guys today, we do take things back, and we do get little nuggets, and we do take them back, and we remember them. And I still remember lots of things that you taught us that.
I can guarantee you on Tuesday night you will see Barry Valentines intermediate group doing this undulating running on Tuesday. I can guarantee you that will be happening. Thanks very much, Hera. Thank you. So just on our panel, just on injury prevention, and talk about a lot of people packing a lot of mileage in. Big races are coming up. Cross country season started. Are there times in the year that sort of elite runners would take total breaks from running? I mean, I've heard Mo Farah said to me that I usually train 43 weeks a year. So there's 52 weeks in the year, so there's 7 or 8 weeks a year he's not running. I'm turning to Gemma, I want to ask you this on that one. How in terms of injury prevention and things to avoid injuries, what are the key things that you have focused in your mind to avoid injuries?
For my injury prevention, I do sort of yoga. I rely on the power yoga in the evenings, and I'm tending to just run, do that, focusing on recovery and doing that, and lots of Pilates and stretching, especially now I'm getting older. So I'm 37 now, so I incorporate a lot of that into my training. So, I have to focus on that more now, and I was encouraged to have 2 weeks off once a year by my coaches during the summer, just before the summer season in April, just after the cross country season. But I always found that difficult. I think that's a key thing as well, and just have little breaks before the season. This is like my little holiday really before the cross country season starts. So it's I've never been one for resting, but I think it's very important that you have to, that's when you recover and get the benefits from your training when you rest. So definitely.
If you have a very hard week and the next week you don't feel right, do you just back it off, or and then you can take
you have to just reset, I think, and just if my energy's running low, you've got to take into account you're not a machine, you're a human being at the end of the day. So you can't keep your glycogen levels down, and you have to get your energy back up before you can start again. I think that's necessary, and there's no harm in doing that. You get sometimes a rest is better than doing more. Less is more, or whatever they say. So it's not all about doing more, it's more about the recovery and getting that right, rather than piling more and more mileage on. I've never believed in the jump mileage, I've more believed in the recovery aspect of it.
I just want to ask Jackie there, there's a question on, obviously, we're now seeing footwear change in running. Now all the running shoes are getting a lot more chunky and a lot more padded. Carbon plates are here, faster times. You can see all the road running events this year and last year, and even on the track. Times are getting faster, and people now, and certainly a lot of the sort of elite juvenile athletes I coach, as soon as a new shoe comes out and it's been worn on the track, they have to have it. And obviously GB Athletics is at the forefront of running. Just want to see what's your view on all this, all these new shoes, and obviously they're all weird shapes and you hit the ground in different ways, and it's not like the old shoes of the 80s and 90s in terms of injury prevention, getting the wrong shoes and things like that. What's your advice to runners in terms of things like that?
I suppose advice to runners on it is know what shoe you're getting and why you're getting it and when you want to use it. So, you know, yeah, the carbon plated shoes are here. They are making people run faster in races. Some people are choosing to train in them. Some people are saying, no, definitely just keep them for racing, don't train in them. And again, that big sort of word, it depends. It depends on the athlete. It depends on what you want to do. It depends what you want to get from that session. So yeah, just research what's in the shoe, what it's supposed to do, and also how it works with your running style, because it will work with some running styles better than it works with other running styles. Some people say they don't feel the benefit, other people say they do. One of the big benefits that I think a lot of the marathon runners are talking about is that they seem to be recovering more quickly after the marathon, don't seem to feel they need as long as a recovery break after the marathon if they've had those shoes on. So yeah, I would just say know the shoe, know what's in it, know what you want it to do, and for when you want it to do it, and plan appropriately.
I wanted to move to Katrina here just for a question here that one of my athletes actually asked me this last weekend, and we're talking about cross country training this period now. All the clubs are now on the grass, getting ready for the big races coming up. What percentage of your training on the cross country were you wearing spikes, or did you do quite a lot of training on the grass and trainers and things like that, or is that something that you would have?
Yeah, so most of it was actually it was only that hill session that we spoke about earlier that I would have done in spikes. The rest was just in runners, and initially it was in my bare feet, to be honest. But that's when I was younger and started off, and I think that was great as well because it strengthened my legs. But I did a lot of my training on hills, and maybe that's why I was good in cross country. I trained on the golf course in Cavan Town, and it was all up and down hills, and there was only about 100 metres or maybe even 80 metres of it on the flat surface. So then when I went to races in Belgium and Holland and Spain and places like that, it was completely flat. And psychologically then, as well as physically, I felt I had an advantage. So hill training is great. It makes you very, very strong. And I know there's a lot of strength training and all of that has to be done, but there's nothing like running up and down hills. Just the natural way, and just keep it simple. But yeah, so
getting the trainers on, Rosie, next week, which is next, ban the spikes.
No, I just wore the spikes, as I said, just for that hill session, but the rest of it was, and then I would have done, during that cross-country times as well, I would have done some kilometre reps on the track. Sometimes they were in spikes, sometimes they were in racing flats. I don't, as we all know, the shoes weren't as good back then, and we had to be careful when we put on the spikes because they were just like little slippers as such. So I wouldn't have worn them that much, really.
Thank you. Bashir's done some great work when we down to see that at Athlone AIT. It's a great facility, the indoor track there, and the parkrun facilities, the outdoor track there. It's a great facility for people leaving secondary education to go to and train, and there's some good coaches down there. You're getting athletes ready for the cross country season this winter. Just give me some of the guides of injury prevention. You're lucky you have a lot of different surfaces there to train on. You have the grass area right on that facility. You have the outdoor track, indoor track. You also got a fantastic gym.
Yeah, we're right there in the centre of Athlone. We've got a Mondo track surface, which is great if you want to run fast. But one of the key things about running on that Mondo surface is, while you're fit and fresh and floating nicely at the beginning of a session, you're working the track and you do flow well. But if you go too fast, as we talked about earlier, you get to the second half of the session and suddenly your biomechanics have gone a little bit and you're not working the track's working you. And as a result of that track working you, the reverberations up your your Achilles tendon in your car can be quite significant, and there are athletes that come off that track and they're absolutely battered and bruised because they've not got the pacing right, they've gone off too fast. We do use that track sparingly, particularly with the beginners at the beginning of the year. And one of the important things, particularly with the first years, is not so much to train hard when they first arrive, but really to settle in socially and get used to living in and around Athlone, living away from home. And then perhaps later in October or November, once they're settled, then we'll start up in the training. But we actually use the grass circuit. We've got a 2 kilometre floodlit forest there at Athlone, and we do make use of that, and we do a lot of our reps doing short hills and grass reps around there. But yeah, it's an absolutely great facility, and on those occasional days when it rains, we've got the indoor facility to make use of.
I'll just move to Joe here. Joe's obviously coaching a young girl called Innes Fitzgerald, who has really burst onto the scene. I think she's under 18 this year, is that right? She'll be under 18 this year?
She'll be 18 in April.
She came to Northern Ireland on the SIAB Schools British International last year and ran sub 9 minutes for the 3K. She easily won the age group championships in the British cross country last year by a country mile. And I just want to get, she's gone to the age now where she's starting to transfer from being a juvenile to a sort of young adult. And she'll not be long before she's in under 20s. And I suppose maybe you even thinking this year, could she make that British team for the under 20 cross country? Just give me on some sort of guide of when some people here coaching juvenile athletes, good juvenile athletes. How would you be structuring the transfer from the summer cross country season to the summer track to the cross country season, avoiding injury? So we'll see those athletes are growing as well as developing their speed as well.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about the thing of growth and development, and Jackie's said about the long term, she spoke in the session earlier, and we feel very much that with Innes. Okay, she's running well now, and she's a brilliant person, she's really determined, but we want to try and help her with that transition. And going back to the topic of women and the menstrual cycle, and we have a few teenage girls that my husband and I coach. My husband's kind of the lead coach because I'm doing lots of other things as well, but with them, the menstrual cycle is something we're very open with. We've talked about the fact that when you've got your time in the month, when you've got your period, you can't run as well, and that can be, like you say, you don't feel as good, but it's also fluid retention, those sort of problems. You can't run as fast because your body doesn't feel as good with the fluid retention, and actually it is a time where you can be prone to picking up an injury as well. I know myself sometimes at times it tended to trigger off sciatica, and I used to have problems with that, and also be all prone to injury. And I did used to alter my training sessions, so we like our young women to be open with the menstrual cycle. And the other side of it is with all of them, we've been very into the fact that if they're not having a regular cycle, we have to reduce their training, and it is even less than you would even give to someone of that level for that age. It's less than that. Unless they're having a regular menstrual cycle, we're not happy to give them very much training at all until their cycle's established, and we've been in contact with specialists on their behalf and things like that. I'm talking about all of the young women, and as far as making transition from the younger athletes to senior athletes, it's about keeping the volume low, trying to explain to them that yes, there are people running really, really well at a young age, but if you look at the statistics, most of them are not making it to become a senior athlete. And also, if they're not having a menstrual cycle, but also for young men as well, there's a danger of REDS, which is obviously relative energy deficiency in sport, where for women they're not getting that estrogen stimulus of the bones, but for men and women, young athletes, they're getting their bones weakened by not having enough nutritional intake, and they might be running well for a couple of years before they're the age of 20 or something like that, or in their early 20s, but it's not sustainable, and you see these athletes lost to the sport. So really the key thing is about their health and well-being, and increasing their training at a sensible level, keeping them running on grass, keeping them wearing flats and not spikes all the time, and trying to hold them back. You've got to be able to trust them to do the training you're setting. I think occasionally young athletes can do a little bit more behind the scenes, even when you're you know, giving them a very specific schedule, and so there has to be that element of trust as well, because you're trying to tell them that no, you know, there's a lot of young athletes, yes, they are doing really well, but they're doing too much training and that's not sustainable. They've got nowhere to go. So it's about making sure that they understand that, and then they can have somewhere to go. You're trying to keep the sessions as the main thing, but we went away from doing the Tuesday, Thursday sort of traditional track thing that they do at a club, because even though the club is a big thing for us, our club Exeter Harriers, we go up there on a Tuesday, but we don't go on a Thursday because it's too close together. So we either train them on the grass on the Friday or the Saturday morning, and then we just have a few weeks in the summer where we do actually do a Saturday morning track session, but not if they're racing. But we're just not happy with them doing track, one day track, because the injury risk is so high. So we're kind of looking at all that, and yeah, going between track and cross country, as you said. You know, our athletes now, some of them are already in a bit of a break to build up for cross country, but one of the things we're mindful of doing is, yes, they are having a break, and we make sure they have that break, but within a week off we'll still put in, say, you know, they do maybe 2 20-minute runs or something like that, just something to keep the body adjusted to running, to try and reduce the injury risk. And then we'll be building up gradually, changing the sessions to the grass where we go. We've got a grass field, and then we can go up the hill and things like that. Like Katerina was saying, I was really interested in Katerina saying about how you'd practice cross country and things like that with the running downhill. When you were saying about running downhill, so I was thinking, yeah, I was bad at running uphill, but also downhill. And I think I probably used to think, oh, I'm no good at hills, but the downhill was when I'd also lose ground. So I think, yeah, doing sessions on the cross country is really, really important, and doing that longer stuff, but still keeping in touch with some of your quality speed work so that you find the race pace a bit easier. But yeah, I think the transition, looking after junior athletes is a big responsibility, because not only do you want them to fulfil their potential, you want to keep them enjoying the sport. You don't want them to have too much pressure. You don't want them to be lost to the sport through burnout physically, but also mentally. You want to keep that level of enjoyment there. You've got to appreciate they've got exams to do, they've got loads of different things going on in their lives, and so keeping that enjoyment, avoiding injury, and making sure they keep healthy, really.
Yeah. Just want to throw the session just finally out to the audience, just for, I'll take 2 final questions before I think the panel freeze to death here. Anybody else got any questions like that?
Just kind of make a point on the shoes. The one advice I would give to athletes, the insoles of all the shoes are rubbish. Invest in a proper pair of sorbent heel pads with proper arch supports. It reduces considerably the impact on the road. All shoes, they're paper-friendly insoles. Invest in a proper pair of sorbent insoles. It's worth it on the bike to get your
There we go, insoles. Just want to throw one final question. John Craig, I see him in the audience. Not going to get away with this too quickly. This young man competes at a high level in Northern Ireland, and he seems to be able to compete well on track, on road, and cross country. And he's still up there fighting it out with the best in Northern Ireland all through the year and getting very good results. Just give me a guide, just finally before we go, just of your strategies for injury prevention. I'm assuming you're in the late 30s or 40s. Am I right in saying?
Well, what I have been a lot more conscious of recently is strength and conditioning. I'm actually seeing a strength and conditioning coach. Also for performance, because I just hit the vet 40 category there recently. I turned 40 in July, and from what I believe, led to believe is your muscles start to atrophy more as you get over 40, so it's even more important to do the strength and conditioning. So I'm doing quite a lot of running specific strength and conditioning stuff. One question I was wanting to ask the panel is just regarding race tactics. It's obviously very rarely is a race evenly paced. Quite a lot of people fall into the trap of running, say, 10 to 12 400s, just a prescribed pace. How would you prepare for like a fast start in a race, or surges? You know, would there be specific sessions? Would you ever do like hammer reps within the session, or would you start a session fast, or do alternation paces, blend workouts in order to prepare your body for like races fluctuating in pace throughout the race?
There's a question. I'll start with you, Jim. This one.
Yeah, my favourite session that I do is like a 3 minute, 2 minute, 1 minute session. So it's like, yeah, going down 3, 2, 1, so I'm getting quicker throughout the session. So yeah, and I do that 5 times, so that's my go-to session that I do. It's like a signature session, so yeah, I think that's as fast, as good as I get for pace variation, to be honest, in a session. And I've been known to do like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then back down. That's a pyramid session as well. So yeah.
So the increase of pace is replicating what John's saying.
Yeah.
Surges and races.
Trying to sprint on tired legs as well, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the key, I think. Yeah.
I was out at the European Team Champs with the team in June, and I can't remember which athlete. I was talking to one of the endurance athletes, but they were doing a session which was 500 reps, but within that 500 rep, there was markers on the track where they had to surge, basically. So within a rep, there was a rep, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I think it was for about, it might have even been 200 metres. So 500, within the 500, there was a 200 marker where it had to be faster, and that was practicing. I think it might have been Johnny Davis, I'm not sure, but 5,000 metres, sort of, yeah. You might have some thoughts on.
I'll take one final comment from Bashir, yeah.
I think, as you pointed out, the idea of doing strength and conditioning is really good, because that teaches your body to recruit muscles, and as I already said, endurance runners don't recruit a massive percentage of their muscles anyway, so by doing strength and conditioning you can target the working muscles to recruit more, and then ultimately develop the ability and the confidence to execute what you're going to have to execute. And I know, having won a Masters title, that you've got to be able to, do a 55-second final lap over that final lap to win that title. And you got some of the top athletes who are running well into the 13 minutes for 5k, but also well into the 340s for the or even 330s for the 1500. So you need speed reserve. You need to develop that speed reserve, and whether you develop it by strength and conditioning or by doing light plyometrics, as simple as you've probably seen me doing down at Belfast, hopping up and down steps or jumping up and down steps, but having that explosive ability to recruit the muscles at the right time, and being able to kick. But it sounds like you're heading in the right direction. But ultimately, you've got to be thinking, 55 seconds for that final 400 is going to get you there, or as close to 55 seconds as you can get as an M40. Because that's what you've got to do to win. You've got to have a speed reserve.
Just one more quick thing. I've noticed in the last few years, like the kick hasn't been as good as it used to be, and I'm hoping the strength work helps with that. But I've heard like things like bounding within sessions and hill sprints might help and recruit more prosthetics muscle fibers.
Ultimately, your fast twitch is your fast twitch, and you can convert the type 2s one way or the other, but it's long term, and the older you get, the longer it takes. The other thing that I've not mentioned on is your technique as well. So technically you've got to be neat as well, and you've got to be technically neat on that final lap. The other thing that we could touch on is the alactic energy system, and if you exhaust that at the beginning of the race, then you've lost an extra gear that you might have. And I know I won an awful lot of races in the final 10 or 20 metres of an event because I just had an extra kick that I hung on to. And if you look at somebody like Mo Farah in particular, who starts off at the back, and Sifan Hassan was another example, who started off the race at the back and came through, and she probably didn't touch on her lactic system, but towards the end she probably ran almost as fast as the winning athlete that day, but she gave them all a head start at that final lap. So looking at how people execute, and I know in the past Laura Muir has used that similar tactic, just conserving the energy and not exploding too quickly or too aggressively. And a lot of youngsters will do that early on, with bumping and barging and fighting early on in the race, and that wastes an awful lot of energy, particularly in the 800. But that's my thoughts on that. Does anybody got anything to add?
Anybody else? No? Listen, I'd like to thank you for your time today to come into the session. I hope you got some good information from our panel. I'd also like to thank the McAvoy family for having us here at their home as part of this event. And just to promote our event tomorrow, we have one of the fastest races in the world this year, over half marathon, starting 9:30 in Larne Town Centre. I have seen the list of the athletes tomorrow, and I can assure you it is well worth getting up early to come and see this race. You'll not see a finer set of athletes anywhere in Europe in the next 5 months running in this half marathon. And I bid you all a safe journey home. Thank you very much.